Recommendations covers a host of areas, both in the bond market, conventional, and the sukuk market. We know that Bangladesh is a very different financial structure compared to the global economy. It's kind of inverted in some sense. Why? Because in Bangladesh, we are bank dominated, very much bank dominated. But the global financial system is bond dominated. Look at the magnitude: $130 trillion of bonds issued globally. 133. That's 130% of global GDP. Second, when the other markets, the stock market is the second highest market in the world, and that's about $90 trillion. So significantly smaller. And the third is the money market, which includes everything, our bank, non-bank, and all together. And that constitutes 60 trillion, which is less than half of the world. So we have an inverted structure, and I'm not going to mention the pensions, the insurance sector, because it's so small in Bangladesh. It's 0.4% of GDP, so it doesn't come into the calculation. But anyway, what we want to do is we want to change that structure, because we need to move from this structure, the bank dependence, corporate culture, where I see part of the problem coming from this mismatch of the structure and the management. Why? Because corporations are inherently biased towards the banks. They don't want to take issue bonds, but they want to go to the banks. I don't know why, but there is an incentive for sure. But doing it, maybe we get away with non-payment of maybe our political influence that we can exert on the bank, or whatever. The bias is there. Now, what we need, we have to change that culture. And we have to create what the corporates push and the pull factor. Push is to push them out of the banks, and pull factor is to pull them into the bond market. What is the problem? The banks are now lending for 15 years, 12 years, which they are not supposed to. And what they are doing in many cases, a project that would require 15 years lending, or minimum 12 years lending, their structure is 6 years, 5 years. And inherently this project is, and it becomes no problem. So what the way out is the proper structuring and going to the proper market for financing this project. So we have to keep on working for that transformation in the financial system that needs to happen. As we have identified, like in most of the countries, that there is a demand side and there is a supply side for developing the world. On the demand side, I think government bond dominates the market. No question about it. On the supply side, government bonds dominate the market, and that is normal. If you look at the US, the US treasuries account for 140% of GDP. But that's the way it is. In Bangladesh also, the government bond dominates the market, and unfortunately, the corporate bond market is very, very small. Not even quantifiable. I mean, there are about, my fingers can be counted, and the amount is very small. So, this market needs to develop. On the government side also, there is a number of things that can be done. For example, we have a huge pool of Sanchay. which can, in principle, now it has been linked to the market, but in principle it should be tradable. It's a non-tradable segment of the market, and that it doesn't help the customers also, because if you have a tradable, you can get out of it in the secondary market and increases the liquidity in the market. So that can be done by the government in a stroke of a pen. Very quickly it can be done if there is a will. So after long debate, very recently the interest rate structure of these instruments have been linked to the market. But we need to go much beyond that. Make it tradable and also accessible, much more accessible to the households. It has been made accessible to the households in the last few years, which is a very welcome development. Households can now purchase government bonds, which is good, but and it is tradable. But non-government bonds, needs to be also tradable and needs to be structured like a bond. That way we can double the bond market size overnight and create a more vibrant bond market. So there's a shortcut to that if you want to pursue that. Sukuk market is very small. There are only six issues so far, amounting about 24,000 crore account. Very small market. Here we have assets also. Instead of going to new assets and old assets, easy thing is to have those assets which are generating income. We can securitize them faster. The market is much better than any other instruments. So, for example, Jamuna Bridge, Walda Bridge, they have a stream of income, and that income flows can be that's why that asset is really become very quickly as a big security. You can build the second for the bridge with the bond issue for the first for the bridge. You can build the second for Jamuna Bridge if you want to issue bond against the first bridge. So this is a possible thing, very much doable by our finance ministry in consultation with the relevant ministries like bridges and highway authorities or railways or whatever organization. So we need to work on that, and even the roads which are toll roads, which are highways or flyovers, those things can be, if it is a public funded, that can be either funded by issuing the sukuks in the case of new projects, or if it is not existing projects, if it is existing projects, it can be the toll flow can become the source of securitization. Our metro rail can be securitized also and used for funding other metro branches and so on. So there are ways of doing it. What we need is actually an operational department in the Ministry of Finance to look into the sukuk issue. There is no such thing. Right? There is a debt management unit which is mainly focused on rolling over the debt and managing the yield structure and so on. But they need to develop the sukuk market by looking at existing government investments where there is income flow. Dhaka Airport, Dhaka Metro Rail, there are very many projects like that. They need to be carefully looked at, securitized and move the market. That's a huge way of supply side that I can think of from the government side. For the new projects also, collaboration with the Planning Commission and the Ministry of Finance, they can upfront to the securitization against anticipated flow of income. And that can be doable. Again, the Finance Ministry has to take the lead to catalyze that transaction and develop that instrument. What I would say in this case is that we also have to look at the demand side. Who is going to demand the bonds? Certainly, government pension system is something that needs to be looked at as a source of fund for long-term investment and create the demand for these bonds. Currently, the pension system in Bangladesh is what do you call it, unfunded. There is an asset. But there is a huge liability, maybe tens of trillions of taka of liabilities, but no asset. So it needs to be funded. It cannot be funded today, but certainly it can be funded from this year for the new entrants in the government service. Whoever is joining, they can start with the pension system as a contributory pension system by the government, and we make it a fully funded pension system. So when they will retire 30 years later, the funding system will make their payments out of that fund. And the creation of that fund will give the demand for the bonds. So we need to have this demand side of development as well. Corporate pension funds, provident funds, benevolent funds, all of those things which are funded, they are long-term. They can be used for holding long-term instruments like bonds. So we need to develop corporate pension fund or corporate, these funds are underfunded again. Some pension authority needs to be developed just to manage that all corporations, including government corporations and so on, they are funding their pension liabilities, their gratuity liabilities upfront. Not asking the staff who is going to retire tomorrow that please stay for another 3 years because we cannot pay you, so you stay with us and keep going. That's not the way to manage pension funds. So pension funds are underfunded. Pension Regulatory Authority will be a very important element to ensure that all the corporations comply with the level of, comply with the pension fund regulations, comply with the funding of the instruments, and that will create the demand, long-term demand for holding long-term bonds. Insurance companies are another area. As I said, this is in shambles. Bangladesh insurance penetration is only 0.4% of the population is covered through insurance. 0.4%. In India, which is 10 times, is only 4%. And in the developed market, it's 12%. So we need to develop our pension system. Again, regulatory requirements are very, very important in that regard. What's the regulation? Basically, if you have a car, you have to have it insured. Bangladesh used to have it. We have withdrawn that requirement. The market has shrunk. So we need to develop the insurance market as well. Tax policies also needs to be guided to develop the market. So overall, what I want to say is that we have a lot to do. আমি একটু বাংলায় বলি, আমাদের অনেক কিছু করার আছে। আমাদের এই কর্পোরেট বন্ড মার্কেট নিয়ে আমরা কাজ করছি। বাংলাদেশ ব্যাংক অ্যান্ড সিকিউরিটি এক্সচেঞ্জ কমিশন, আমরা একটা রিপোর্ট তৈরি করেছি। খুব শীঘ্রই সেটা আমরা সরকারের কাছে পেশ করতে যাচ্ছি উইথ এ ফুল সেট অফ রিকমেন্ডেশনস, যেখানে কর্পোরেট বন্ড এবং গভর্নমেন্ট বন্ডের চাহিদা কিভাবে বাড়ানো যায় সেই দিকে আমরা পলিসিগত স্পেসিফিক রিকমেন্ডেশন করব, এবং এট দ্য সেম টাইম কিভাবে বন্ডের সরবরাহগুলো আমরা বাড়াতে পারি সেই আলোচনাটা সেখানে আছে, রিকমেন্ডেশন থাকবে। আমরা আশা করব যে বাংলাদেশের যে বন্ড মার্কেট, যেটা সবচেয়ে ছোট মার্কেট আমাদের, সেটা বিশ্বে যেটা সবচেয়ে বড় মার্কেট হিসেবে পরিগণিত, আমরা সেই বড় মার্কেটের দিকে বড় মার্কেটকে নিয়ে যেতে পারবো আগামী দিন। ধন্যবাদ।